morning. This is our third video in the 7mm rim mag loading series using the Satterlee method, and we're going to get straight into our results of our 120 grain shooting. So in the Satterlee method, you probably remember I said I was going to load up 4, but you know, technical difficulties and ornery chronographs and everything like that. The 4831 did not get tested. My chrono pooped out on me with my last 2 loads of Reloder 22. I threw some more cider rounds in there, tried to, you know, figure out what was going on. The shooting lanes were crowded at that time. So instead of shutting the shooting range down, trying to fiddle with my chronograph, I went with the three loads that we tested. So next time out, these will be shot and we'll compare where we are. So let's get right to it. We did shoot indoors, so you know, these are only 50-yard targets, but these are 15-round groups. Reloder 22 is a 13-round group because the last 2 loads did not register on the chrono. But I was aiming at these sticker dots that I put at the top. So nice little group there for 13 rounds. Yeah, my neighbor next to me shot my target and was so embarrassed that he ended up leaving. But the W760, not so happy with that. It was kind of all over the place. We'll get into that here in just a minute. Here's my 5 ciders to make sure we were somewhere on the target. And then 7828, not too bad. Once again, this is 15 yards, so you know, had a little vertical stacking there, but you know, you put the paper back together. That's not a bad group, considering it was 15 different loads and 15 different shots. So held well together there. Getting into the method, once again, remember the Satterlee method is you start at your highest load that you want to go, and you work your way backwards and 0.2 grain increments or 0.3 grain increments, depending on what you want to do. And I just chose to choose 15 rounds in each load. So I started with Hornady's top end on their load data chart and worked our way backward. On the 7828 and the Winchester 760, we went in 2 grain increments, and in the Reloder 22, we went in 0.3 grain increments. I'm sorry, I said 2 grain, it's 0.2 grain increments. So getting right into this, let's look at our charts. We're going to start off with Reloder 22. You'll see here the Reloder 22 was pretty consistent. Started off pretty low, worked its, you know, made a couple of jumps and then made a big jump there to the end, but the 70.3 grains and the 70.6 grains did not register on the chrono. So here's what we got. One thing I did want to talk about was, you know, we got a nice flat zone on the lower end in the 30-50 range, but that Reloder 22 did not obturate and did not seal, so we did not get a good gas seal on the lower end with the Reloder 22. On moving on up, you can see starts jumping up at the 67.3 grain, 67.6, 68.2, and then we hit that flat spot that we're looking for, the 68.5, 68.8, and 69.1. We had a very light increase. That's that flat spot that you're looking for in the Satterlee method. And then you see once we get to 69.4, we get a big jump, 69.7. Then at 70, looks like we had another little flat spot there, 70.3 and 70.6. Not, you know, we'll never know. I can load 2 of those up and see where they result. But, you know, 32, you know, just over 3,200 feet per second. That's smoking at 120 grain, not pushing the gun to its limit. Pressure signs, you'll see pressure signs on all these rounds was good. I picked the top 10 here to show no, you know, there's no ejector marks, there's no cratering on the firing pin dimple or anything like that, so no flattening of the primer. So we're in good shape for pressure signs on all these rounds. So looking at Reloder 22, where we're going to select, we got that flat spot between 68.5 and 69.1. So we're going to choose the middle right there. We are going to go with the 68.8, load up a 5-shot group there, and see what our accuracy looks like out at 100 yards. Looking at the hole that we had at 50 yards, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. Moving on over to the 78.28. Here it is. Pretty surprised with a couple of the results here. Look at the first two loads at 66 and 66.2. You know, we were barely over 68.50, and then at the next load, 66.4, boom, we took a big jump, dang near to, you know, at 39.75, 39.77. I don't have the exact number in front of me. And then we had a fall off. Don't know what happened here, if our case capacity was down a little bit, or I know all our bullet lengths, because I checked every bullet length, so overall length was the same. Everything went through a case gauge, so we were all there. You just, you know, you never know. Dropped back down to just over 29.50 at 66.6, and then we just had that, we had a steady rise up to 67.6. Then we hit that flat spot. We had a mild drop at 67.8, and then at 68, and then we started to move on up again. So here is our flat spot between these four loads right here, 67.4 and 68. So what we're gonna choose for our load is right in the middle, 67.7 grains. We're going to load up 5 of those and see how they shoot. Once again, using the Satterlee method, this flat spot's what you're looking for, so you have a very consistent and low standard deviation, so you have consistent grouping. So if we loaded up 4 or 5 tiers of this and we found our best group, instead of 15 shots, so had we loaded 5 shots of 5 for 5 ladders of 5 to try to find our best pattern, we're 25 rounds into this, where with the Satterlee method we're 15 into this. And at the cost of components, when you're talking about Magnum rifles, you know, over time in load development, you can save yourself, you know, a pretty good chunk of money. Plus, if you hit some of these crazy rises, say you go from, you hit that, say you poured your loads at 66.4 grains, you could have crazy standard deviation, and we've all seen that in our loads, especially, you know, folks that are shooting with chronographs. You know, what's up with this? You know, I've got a load here shooting at, you know, a 35 standard deviation, and I go up 1 grain, and then I've got a 7.5 standard deviation. So what's going on with that? Well, what you're doing is you're hitting one of those pressure curves as that powder is expanding chemically, or chemically reacting and going through expansion. It goes through little pressure curves inside that cartridge as your capacity goes up. So now let's move on to 760. At 760, I was kind of racking my brain here. I didn't know what was going on. It was, I mean, I was surprised as Hillary on election night on this one. It was all over the place. It's one of those, I guess it's one of those powders that's just not happy with this gun and this shell. So let's take a look at this. 57.4 grains was way on up there, almost at 30-50. And then we have this drop off, a huge drop off at 57.6. Then we're build back up. Boom, we have another drop off at 58.6. Then we have another build up to 59.4, and then boom, drop that back down to 59.6, and then we go back up. There is no flat spot in this powder. Winchester 760 is, this immediately eliminates Winchester 760 as a viable powder for this load at 120 grains and 7 mag. For me, this rifle in this case, it might be a wonderful shooting powder for you, but at this crazy, these crazy velocity curves, it's a consistent pattern, but it's a crazy consistent pattern. It jumps up, drops down, jumps up, drops down, jumps back up. Well, we would have deviations all over the place with this powder, and we'd be racking our brain to try to find something consistent. So W760 is going back on the shelf. So here we are, a few hours later. We've tumbled and prepped our brass, got it all primed, ready to go for our next round. So what did we learn from this first round of 3 loadings of the 120 grain Hornady V-Max? Well, one thing we learned is, versus the old way of me doing ladder loads, generally I picked 5 loads out of the reloading book and did 5 shots each. So that's 25 rounds per powder that I would have done. Now, generally, I don't pick powders that don't have much range to shoot in. Here's an example: Power Pro 4000, 57.5 grains to 61.8 grains. There's just not a lot of wiggle room in there, so that's a powder that I don't generally choose from. I'll generally choose the powders that go all the way across or have a wider range of loadings available. So first of all, 30 rounds is what we saved in the whole process. So what's that 30 rounds mean? 45 loads versus 75 loads. So digging deeper in that, first of all, it's time. How much time did we save? That's 30 rounds of brass prep you didn't have to do. That's 30 rounds of loading we didn't have to do. That's 30 rounds of time at the range. I love time at the range as much as anybody, but when you're doing load development, you got the chronograph out, you're getting targets out, you're writing down stuff. It's not like when you're out there plinking and having a good time, or hunting out in the wild. So that time is important to me. I run 2 businesses. I've got a family of 3 teenage boys and a lovely wife and a home to maintain on top of this. So anytime I can save is always important to me. But the main thing that we were after in this method is money savings. Look at the money savings over 30 rounds. In this VMax, 33 cents a bullet was my cost in this round for varmint hunting. We had 42 cents in powder, 3 cents in primer. That's $31.80 right there, just in this one session of load development. And we got, three more bullets to go. We got the ELDX, we got the Game King, and we got the SST. So over time, our savings will be substantial. You know, we're going with the VMax as our varmint round, but we have not decided on what our long-term hunting round is going to be. And who knows what will develop. We haven't even gotten into the solids of the solid coppers or solid brass rounds. So, and those can get real expensive. You know, here's a 458 SOCOM 300 grain Barnes TSX. You know, there's 20 bullets. There's 38, 40 bucks in just that box right there. So, you know, you can get into some calibers that can get real expensive. So what else did we learn? One thing that we did is we eliminated a powder, Winchester 760, our only ball powder that we tested, also our fastest powder that we tested. We eliminated this in 15 rounds. You know, we had all those crazy different velocities at different loadings where it went up and dropped and up and dropped. You know, in the ladder load, we might have had one decent grouping, but we had a funny deviation, so we'd go back and try to fix what was going on in that deviation, and we're continuing to bang our head against the wall with a powder that we were able to eliminate in one shooting. So you know, 760 is not shown for the 162 grain bullets. It was the fastest powder, like I said, so we got rid of that and we were able to do it in 15 rounds. So where we're going to go, we got a couple of rounds to finalize with the VMax. We'll do that. Our next round I think we're going to test will be our ELDX, so look forward to that in our 4th video. We'll get those loaded up and put them down range and see what our results are. Thank y'all. Look into the Satterlee method if you want to save some money and save a little bit of time. In the smaller calibers, no big deal, but you start getting some of these fat calibers, time is important, so is money. Thank y'all. Have a great day.